While other survivalists are out here starving, Ed has an endless buffet of wilderness delicacies. There are free, massive coconuts everywhere you look. Sweet, chewy wild slugs. Rows of fresh, delicious little sea urchins. He even has a highly nutritious bird's nest and abalone diet soup. He basically turned wilderness survival into a paid vacation. Riding in a leaky boat the camera crew definitely stole. Ed arrives at Coron Island in the northwest Philippines. This area is completely remote and lacks basic resources. He brought no food and no survival tools. He didn't even bring hair. Ed has to survive here for 10 days. As soon as he lands, Ed spots a gold mine. The beach is covered in washed-up ocean trash. For a guy with no clothes and no hair, this trash is the ultimate survival tool. He gathers a few plastic bottles to hold water, along with some wire mesh and a bunch of ropes. On top of that, Ed finds plenty of free, massive coconuts. Since he hasn't found fresh drinking water yet, he has to ration the coconut water. It's the dry season, so Ed doesn't have to stress about building a shelter. He just tosses a layer of palm leaves onto the sand. And just like that, his luxury wilderness bed is ready. It is incredibly soft and comfortable. Bright and early the next morning, despite having giant bags under his eyes, Ed manages to force a professional fake smile. But the truth is, he feels terrible. His head is ringing, and his body has zero energy. It turns out his knees have gotten badly infected. If he doesn't do something about it fast, he might actually be sent straight to an early grave. He quickly radios the medical team. Following the doctor's orders, he pulls some antibiotics from his emergency kit and swallows them down. Then he hides in the shade to avoid heat stroke and dehydration. Whenever his mouth gets dry, he cracks open a coconut. Luckily, after a day of rest, Ed slowly gets his energy back. He hits the beach again to look for supplies. It doesn't take long for him to find a rusty iron nail. This gives Ed a bold idea. He drops it into a glass bottle and shakes it up and down with perfect rhythm. Soon enough, the bottom of the glass bottle pops clean off. Ed figures this piece of glass works just like a magnifying glass. Taking advantage of the strong sunlight and light breeze, Ed decides to start a fire using a trick every grade schooler knows. By focusing the sunlight through the glass, getting a fire going is a piece of cake. Staring at that flickering orange flame on the ground, Ed can't help but let out a weird, creepy little laugh. Now that he is basically starved for 3 straight days, it's time to head out and find something to eat to get his strength back. Taking advantage of the low tide, beachcomber Ed grabs his basket and walking stick and heads to the shore for protein. The man's luck is truly unmatched. In just half an hour, he scoops up a ton of hermit crabs. On his way back to camp, he also spots his old friend, a rusty tin can. He packs it all up and takes it home. Tonight's massive feast is boiled hermit crab. They are crunchy, and honestly, they don't taste too bad. Fueled by 2 ounces of protein, Ed gets overly confident again. He confidently declares that tomorrow morning, he is going to dominate this island. He wants to give his viewers a real show. We are now on day 4. He barely takes 2 steps before finding an abandoned fishing net. He packs it up, figuring it might come in handy. Then he squeezes through a narrow gap in the rocks. After walking a little further, Ed lets out a dramatic "oh my god." The camera pans to reveal a hidden, mysterious lagoon. It looks like an absolute paradise. The bright blue water is perfectly crystal clear. And even better, a massive group of sea urchins is just sitting right there in the open. Ed is completely thrilled. These fresh, juicy sea urchins are exactly what he needs to recover from his sickness. They are sweet, fresh, and packed with nutrients. It is way better than a steak. After stuffing his face, he plans to head back to camp. But then he accidentally spots a swamp on the other side of the lagoon. Based on his experience, there is definitely fresh water in there. This is his last shot at finding a water source. So he decides to build a bamboo raft. Luckily, there is plenty of dead bamboo washed up on the beach. Ed gathers a decent pile of it. He plans to build a simple triangular raft. Once the frame is built, he covers the top with his fishing net. Then he ties some styrofoam to it for extra buoyancy. After struggling to paddle across the lagoon, he starts dreaming about never having to worry about fresh water again. But the moment he steps into the jungle, he just stands there, fully broken. The ground here is completely bone dry. There is absolutely no water to be found. Luckily, Ed manages to find something else. These giant woodworms are packed with protein. They are a perfect food source. Without hesitating, he starts munching away. They are sweet, chewy, and taste surprisingly amazing. On the way back to camp, Ed notices several small caves nearby. He figures these rocky holes might hold some fresh water. Figuring it is worth a shot, he walks up to a cliff face that looks easy enough to scale. Risking his life, he starts climbing. Finally, his hard work pays off. Deep inside a rocky crevice, he finds a tiny, crystal clear pool of water. The joy of finding water after days of thirst makes him happier than a kid on Christmas. He completely fills up all of his plastic bottles. To make sure the water is completely safe to drink, Ed decides to build a water filter. He cuts the bottom off a plastic bottle. Then he fills it with crushed charcoal and fine sand. Finally, he pours the murky water through his DIY filter. After boiling it over the fire, The water is incredibly sweet and refreshing. Now that his basic survival needs are met, Ed starts feeling a little too confident again. He sets his sights on catching some ocean fish. He cuts a plastic bottle in half and inverts the top. In one sitting, he cranks out over a dozen fish traps. Then he places them in a shallow area filled with small fish. On his way back to camp, he spots a wild shark swimming by. If he can manage to catch one of these guys, he will have enough food to survive the rest of the week. But to actually catch a shark, Ed needs to make a specialized hook. He carves a double-barbed wooden hook. Once a shark swallows this thing, there is no way it is spitting it back out. He grabs some fresh snail meat to use as bait. He even uses his fishing net to block the exit of the cove. With this setup, nothing is escaping this trap. Now all he has to do is wait for his shark dinner. Before you know it, it is the final day of the challenge. And unsurprisingly, his grand shark plan fails completely. He checks all of his fish traps and finds absolutely nothing. It looks like shark meat is off the menu. Luckily, one of his bottle traps caught a single, tiny fish. To pair with this massive wilderness feast, Ed decides to track down a highly sought-after local delicacy. A bird's nest made entirely of solidified swallow saliva. They are extremely rare and stupidly expensive, mostly because they are a nightmare to harvest. But a man has to eat. Using every ounce of his remaining strength, he climbs into a dark cave. And he actually manages to find one. It is ridiculously small, but it is just enough to make a pot of bird's nest fish soup. Back at camp, he cleans his one tiny fish. Then he dumps everything right into his tin can. Shortly after, his highly nutritious, gourmet diet soup is ready. The nest is chewy and incredibly smooth. It practically melts in his mouth. He washes it down with some fresh fish broth. For the first time all week, Ed finally feels like he is in total control. Full and happy, he sits on the beach to enjoy the view. The next morning, his 10-day challenge is officially over.